Hello friends, and welcome back once again. In this session, we are diving into 12 important questions that were asked from chapter 2 of our book, Literature of the World. These questions have actually appeared in past UGC NET exams, and here's the key. You can expect at least 2 questions in your upcoming exam that are inspired by these very topics. Maybe not in the exact same words, but definitely from these topics. So get ready to sharpen your recall, reinforce key points, and build exam confidence. All from real exam patterns. Let's not waste any time. Let's begin. Let's start this session with a classic chronology question, a favorite in UGC NET English. Arrange the following American poets in order of their birth. A. Emily Dickinson. B. Ralph Waldo Emerson. C. Robert Frost. D. Henry David Thoreau. E. Walt Whitman. Your options are here. You can pause the video and answer in the comment box below. Let's break it down with some helpful dates. Ralph Waldo Emerson, born in 1803. Henry David Thoreau, 1817. Walt Whitman, 1819. Emily Dickinson, 1830. Robert Frost, much later in 1874. So, what's the correct order? Lock it in. And the correct answer is option 1, B, D, E, A, C. This kind of chronology is important not just for factual recall, but for understanding how literary styles evolved in American poetry across the 19th century. Well done if you got that right. Let's keep going. Here's your next question, and it's built around one of the most uplifting quotes in American literature. Which among the following writers remarked, "I know of no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of man to elevate his life by a conscious endeavor"? Henry David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry James, Emily Dickinson. Let's pause for a second. This quote speaks of willpower, self-discipline, and the capacity to grow intentionally. Themes closely associated with the Transcendentalist movement in the mid-19th century. And among those thinkers, one man lived in a cabin beside Walden Pond, writing not just about nature, but about deliberate, meaningful living. Your answer? The correct answer is option 1, Henry David Thoreau. This line appears in Walden, published in 1854, where Thoreau reflects on simplicity, self-reliance, and conscious living. Got it? That's the spirit of transcendentalism in one sentence. Let's move on. Alright, let's step into one of the most iconic political essays in American literature, Henry David Thoreau's Civil Disobedience. According to his essay, Civil Disobedience, what 2 things did Thoreau learn from the night he spent in jail? A. He concluded that the state is ultimately weak. B. He realized that captivity inspires courage. C. He realized that the neighbors are only friends during good times. D. He concluded that captivity brings wisdom about human affairs. Choose the correct answer and write in the comment below. Let's think this through. Thoreau spent one night in jail for refusing to pay a poll tax that funded the Mexican-American War, a war he opposed. During that short confinement, he saw how fragile and symbolic state power truly is. And he also observed how superficial social bonds can be. His neighbors showed kindness in comfort, but vanished when resistance required sacrifice. So, which 2 lessons did he actually take away? The correct answer is option 2, A and C only. Thoreau concluded that the state holds no real moral power and that companionship often fails when conscience is on the line. A powerful insight for anyone thinking about the cost of true resistance. Let's keep the momentum going. On to the next one. Let's go back to the roots of a major American philosophical movement, Transcendentalism. The Transcendental Club was a group of American intellectuals formed for philosophical discussions. But which text among the following is considered a short treatise on transcendentalism itself? Emerson's Nature, Thoreau's Walden, Whitman's Leaves of Grass, Thoreau's Civil Disobedience. Here is a quick clue. The Transcendental Club began meeting around 1836, and the essay that laid the foundation of its philosophy was written by a man who saw God, nature, and the self as one divine flow. This was not a memoir, not a protest, but a philosophical reflection that launched a movement. Time to choose your answer. And the correct answer is option 1, Emerson's Nature. Published in 1836, Nature is considered the manifesto of American transcendentalism. It introduced ideas like the oversoul, self-reliance, and the spiritual beauty of the natural world. Nailed it? Then you're tuned in to the philosophy behind the poetry. Let's continue. Let's pause for a quote that blends the soul of philosophy with the heart of poetry. Who among the following stated, "True philosopher and the true poet are one, and a beauty, which is truth, and a truth, which is beauty, is the aim of both"? Edgar Allan Poe, Philip Sidney, Ralph Waldo Emerson, John Keats. Now, wait. This sounds a lot like Keats, right? Especially the beauty is truth, truth, beauty line from Ode on a Grecian Urn. But here's the twist. The line in this question takes that idea even further, connecting the philosopher and the poet into one visionary figure. And the man who did that, a thinker who led the transcendentalist movement, who saw unity in all things, was Ralph Waldo Emerson? Final answer? The correct answer is option 3, Ralph Waldo Emerson. This idea is deeply rooted in Emerson's belief that truth and beauty are not separate domains, but rather the same force, whether expressed through thought or art. Beautiful minds think alike, poetically and philosophically. Let's move on. Let's turn now to one of Emerson's most influential essays, Self-Reliance. In Self-Reliance, which two qualities does Emerson refer to as the chancellors of God? A. Truth. B. C. Oz. C. Spirit. D. Effect. Here are your answer options. You can pause the video and comment below. Now, here's the insight. In this essay, Emerson urges us to trust the universe's law-like structure to see every action as producing a result. He believes in cause and effect not just as science, but as divine principles that govern the moral and spiritual world. He calls them the chancellors of God, immutable, impartial, and always at work. What's your answer? The correct one is option 4, B and D only. Cause and effect, according to Emerson, are not just logical ideas. They are the spiritual forces that ensure every deed finds its consequence. A powerful reminder that the universe is always watching and balancing. On to the next. A poem filled with sorrow, symbolism, and national mourning. The poem, "O Captain, My Captain," is a tribute to Abraham Lincoln, Emily Dickinson, George Washington. Walt Whitman's brother. Here's your hint. Walt Whitman wrote this poem shortly after the American Civil War ended. The captain is not just any leader. He's the one who guided the ship of the nation through the storm of slavery and war. But just as the voyage ends, the captain falls and the nation mourns. Who was this poem written for? The correct answer is option 1, Abraham Lincoln. O Captain, My Captain was written in 1865, just after Lincoln's assassination, and it remains one of the most heartfelt political elegies in American literature. If you got that, you felt the pulse of poetry as memory. Let's keep going. Let's explore the creative journey of a poem that evolved over time from draft to masterpiece. Identify the two previous titles of the poem, Out of the Cradle, Endlessly Rocking, as Walt Whitman continued to revise it until it reached the present form in the Sea Drift section of the 1881 edition of Leaves of Grass. A. Vigil Strange, I Kept on the Field One Night. B.C. Rossing, Brooklyn Ferry. C. A Child's Reminiscence. D. The Wound Dresser. E. A Word Out of the Sea. Choose the correct answer and write it in the comment below. Here's a helpful clue. Before settling on Out of the Cradle Endlessly Rocking, Whitman had originally titled this piece A Child's Reminiscence and later A Word Out of the Sea. Both reflect the poem's introspective voice and oceanic imagery centered on a child awakening to love, death, and poetic calling. Time to lock in your choice. The correct answer is option 1, C and E. These titles trace the evolution of one of Whitman's most lyrical and symbolic poems, showing how deeply he revised not just words but the spirit of his work. Beautiful insight if you caught that. Shall we keep going? Which text among the following is the sequel to Louisa May Alcott's novel Little Women? Little Men, Good Wives, Joe's Boys, An Old-Fashioned Girl? Now here's the thing. Good Wives is often published as the second half of Little Women, but the true sequel, written as a continuation of the March family story, comes after Little Men and follows Jo as she raises the next generation at Plumfield. So which one is it? The correct answer is option 3, Joe's Boys. Published in 1886, Joe's Boys is the final installment in Louisa May Alcott's trilogy following Little Women and Little Men. It gives closure to Jo March's journey, now a mentor, mother, and matriarch. Sweet success if you knew that. Let's continue our journey through the classics. Time now for a moment of lyrical wisdom. 4 short lines, but they hold a lifetime of truth. Who has composed the lines below? Success is counted sweetest by those who ne'er succeed. To comprehend a nectar requires sorest need. Is it Christina Rossetti? Or Thomas Hardy? Or Emily Dickinson? Or is it Matthew Arnold? Here's a clue. This poet rarely left her home, yet wrote over 1700 poems, most of them unpublished during her lifetime. She found truth in paradox and depth in simplicity. This particular poem, it reflects her theme of longing, loss, and the value of unfulfilled desire. Got your answer? The correct answer is option 3, Emily Dickinson. This poem captures Dickinson's gift for expressing profound human emotion using just a few carefully chosen words. Success is counted sweetest is one of her most quoted and studied poems. If you got that right, your poetic sense is sharp. Let's continue. Here's a matching type question, a favorite in UGC NET exams. Let's see how well you remember the signature works of American literary giants. Match list 1 with list 2. List 1 contains authors like Ernest Hemingway, William Faulkner, Herman Melville, Mark Twain. On the other hand, list 2 contains their associated works like Typee, A Peep at Polynesian Life, Light in August, The Tragedy of Pudd'nhead Wilson, Across the River and Into the Trees. Here are your options. You can now pause the video and write your answer in the comment below. Here's a breakdown. Across the River and Into the Trees, that's Hemingway, late in his career. Light in August, a Southern Gothic classic by William Faulkner. Typee was Melville's debut, long before Moby Dick. And The Tragedy of Pudd'nhead Wilson, that's pure Mark Twain, sharp satire and all. So the correct pairing is option 1. Mastering these author title pairings helps you tackle both direct and theme-based questions with ease. Great if you got that one. Let's continue. Alright, here comes our final question for today's session. Who among the following is the author of the novel titled Typee, A Peep at Polynesian Life? Is it Walt Whitman or Herman Melville? What if it's Mark Twain? Or maybe Tennessee Williams? Need a clue? Before he became famous for Moby Dick, this author lived among Polynesians and turned the experience into a semi-autobiographical travel novel. It was his first major success, published in 1846. Exotic, adventurous, and controversial for its time. Final answer? The correct answer is option 2, Herman Melville. Typee was Melville's breakout work, offering readers a mix of cultural observation, critique of Western colonization, and vivid storytelling. And that brings us to the end of this set. 12 powerful questions directly based on what UGC NET expects you to know. Stay tuned, because in the next session, we'll pick up from Chapter 3 with more PYQs and deep insights. Meanwhile, you can click the link in the description box to attend and access the PYQs and its explanations. Until then, keep learning, keep revising, and as always, trust the process.